inside that envelope, I would keep telling myself, there must be a parent somewhere in Kasipur, Kabondo, who would want to get some credit to take their children to school. And there's no other financial institution that is giving it to them. Only we are doing it. And the one condition is that then your salary then needed to come through. Yeah. And therefore, if I don't do what I'm doing, the parent in Kasipur, Kabondo may never manage to educate their children.
Manze, I think at this point, Saint letter bell. Nijilia class, manze. To class is in session. Again, if you're joining us, thank you so much for the support. And I really do hope that these conversations are shaping your life this 2021. And yeah, tuendelee tu kushare. So again, leo tuko class. I have the most interesting teacher today. Reason being, he has over 20 years experience in the banking industry. But why I find him interesting is naturally, ukisikia mtu anafanya job kwa bank, you expect a very stuck-up guy. But this guy, the energy. If you want to see his energy, check out his YouTube page. It's called Goldmine. With Dennis Njau, sorry. Goldmine with Dennis Njau. Jina ilikuwa imepotea. So Dennis Njau has over 20 years experience in the banking sector. He's an experienced digital channels head with a demonstrated history of working in the banking industry. Skilled in banking, credit analysis, commercial banking, credit risks, and loans management. Yeah. He's an associate of the Kenya Institute of Bankers from Kenya School of Monetary Studies and a master's in strategic management and marketing. That's brilliant. Do you know?
Hey. Your CV ni nani unasoma?
Your CV. Kuna department hujaingia banking. How was that journey? First of all, let's start from here. Right. I am yet to meet a man who says, or a woman, mwenye anasema, I wanted to be a banker. Every banker I meet landed there by default. Right. Where will it part at?
So mine was a conscious decision.
Yes.
It was a conscious one. So it goes back to the beginning. When I was growing up, and I had this banker that I looked up to, and the quality of life she had was something that I was like, man, not too bad, man. Yeah. I want to be part of that. I don't want to just flow like that. Yeah. And it looked like they enjoyed a few things in life that I wasn't enjoying then. Yeah. And there are a few things that I would see in their place that I didn't see in our place. And I thought it looked like a very decent thing to do. And if being a banker amounts to your maisha, man, I don't mind it at all. And so I said way back, man, I'll either become a banker or a media guy. Okay. Because then I also considered myself back then gifted in terms of just being able to express and all of that stuff. Yeah. So it therefore became an aspiration, and someone inspired me to it. Okay. I looked at her life. Mm-hmm. In fact, the other day we turned out with her at the airport, and I told her, man, Rachel, you inspired me into this thing. Man. At least I got the opportunity to let her know. She shaped my aspiration. So, so she shaped it. And I think once I fell in love with it, I decided to just pursue it. And therefore, as you have just read, I then went ahead and even did it professionally. Yeah. And so, I consider myself a professional banker, and I'm happy to be there.
Okay, the money excited you. That's good. That's good. So why I said you're too bubbly for a banker. Here's the story. Yeah. My elder sister is a doctor, and at some point she worked in a hospital that was right across a bank. So most of her clients ended up being bankers. At the same time, on the same building, there was also a media company, a station. So her clients were mostly bankers and journalists. And so we were just having a conversation, and she was like, oh my God, treating bankers is so hard. Those guys, it's as if the profession teaches them to hold in secrets. Right. Yeah, I think because of the whole idea of you guys are handling people's money, right? I don't know, are you taught secrecy? So she used to have the hardest time with bankers. Yani mtu ni mgonjwa lakini hakuambii ni mgonjwa wapi. Whereas the journalists, on the other hand, by the time they're walking through the door, they've given you the entire history.
Yeah. Absolutely. There are variations in many things. There's variation in personality, number one. Because then I think you bring you wherever you go.
Yeah, exactly.
And therefore, whatever your personality is, I mean, it just comes through.
Yeah.
Right? And of course, sometimes I hear these stories of there's a conservative career. I think at the end of the day, is you bring you.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt, a bit of your career does shape you.
Yeah.
But I guess you never get away from you. You will always carry you wherever you go. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
So something interesting you've mentioned, from an early age you knew you wanted to be a banker because of Rachel.
Yeah,
You call
Rachel
her.
very fun.
Were you born and raised hapa Nairobi ama ni wewe Nairobi by bus? Umekuja Nairobi by bus.
Ndugu tulikuja further studies. Further studies you guys. Further studies you guys. Born and bred in Murang'a County.
Murang'a County.
Yeah. Tulikuja Nairobi saa zile tulikuja university.
Okay.
So that's nyumbani for me.
I'm always curious about how someone is shaped into the career they choose, and for you to be that exposed to even know what a banker is at that age. And what was the environment like at home? Did your parents encourage that, or it was just Rachel and that was it?
Well, number one, I think back then, the questions of even career guidance was scarce in the day. And I suspect it was scarce in many places. Mm-hmm. Because you do have parents who are also trying to figure themselves up one way or the other, from this career or the other. Your older siblings are also probably trying to find their way out. Mm-hmm. To be very honest, I discovered she was a banker after I'd already admired what I'd seen.
Okay.
And it was more, those things of boss. Philip and kupata unajua ile VHS ya watch video. Yes. We didn't have that stuff at home. But when I visited Rachel, I found they had it. And I'm like, man, I mean, that is something that I would certainly want to have. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest journeys I think that has been a challenge for a lot of us is actually just getting that guidance in terms of then what do you then grow to become. And many times we'd be asked those questions. What do you want to be when you grow up? And I still hear that question being asked even today. And the reality is maybe part of what was then may not necessarily be what it is today, because then the environment has also significantly changed. Back in the day, you said I wanted to be in arts. You sounded funny. Sounded funny. Today, I think the art industry is an extremely big industry. Yes. And sometimes we actually talk about the who you are. And I actually made that reference to that statement earlier. Mm-hmm. We are gifted in different ways. Yeah. And we've got talents in different places. Mm-hmm. We've got passions in different places. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes true freedom is just being able to be you. So that then whatever you do is an extension of who you are. Yeah. And out of the overflows of who you are, then you extend into what you do. And I suspect it's part of why then I've not struggled being a banker. Because for me, it was a desire. Yeah. Now, whether it was it was encouraged back then or not, I don't know. I'm not even sure whether it was or it wasn't. Yeah. Because then maybe I didn't even vocalize it much back then. Yeah. I probably didn't vocalize it back then. But then at the point at which banking doors opened for me to first and foremost go to college, my mom was very, very happy. I'm from a single parent family, by the way. It's just my mom and I, and that's where I grew up. And she was just absolutely happy just to encourage me to just go ahead with it. And the truth is, even in training for it, it was a task. Mm-hmm. Man, nakumbuka one semester, man, I failed everything, man, and it was difficult to go home and say I have failed everything. And it was not an easy program to do. In fact, quite a number of guys actually disembarked from it. Mm-hmm. And they bailed off and they went and there are guys we started banking with today who are nurses, probably doctors and all of that stuff. Because they're like, I mean, I can't just stick on with this thing. Yes. But in spite of those experiences, I stayed on. Because for me, then this is something that I had said I want to do. And therefore, I think when you do stuff that is within your passion area, it gives you some staying power. Because on whichever path you take, there will be challenges on whichever the path you take. Yes. It's never easy. I mean, you're in the creative space, and I don't think you're where you are because it's been that easy. All right? Yes. You've had to toughen it out. Yes. But sometimes when you align what you do with what you're passionate about and who you're about, then it also gives you some staying power. Then you can deal with those challenges as challenges to overcome, not challenges that get you to quit from where you are. And if looking back, I think if I was to then ask the same question, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would say, be true to you. Yeah. Find your space. Yes. What are you passionate about? What are some of your giftings? What are some of your talents? What are some of those things that just give you a kick? You're just passionate about those. I think within that particular space, there must be something. Yeah. Today, when I look back, I think the banking beat was about people, because I think I'm very, very passionate about people.
Clearly.
I was very passionate, and I still am very passionate about people. It's just that then I express it on the banking platform. And every day I wake up, I want to ask myself, how can I make it more convenient for my customers? How can I make life more possible? And when I look at even where I started my banking journey, man, I mean, I wasn't always who I am today. It's been a journey.
And that is a journey. Let me stop you right there because I want to hear that journey. So my background is self-employment, you know, and business and entrepreneurship. But now your world, in fact, I am scared of your world, the corporate world, because I'm sure there are people you started with, and they're still where you started them with them, but you have gone on to grow through the years. How has that journey been? One, and two, like how would you? Because not everyone is cut out to be in business. So if someone is coming into the corporate world, what will you tell him or her? Like, this is how you're going to grow.
See, I think number one, even in just whichever the space, like I said, be true to you as much as you can. There are challenges, not everyone has the luxury of that, but to the best that you can, be you. The actor, remain and do your acting stuff. Work your craft, perfect your craft. To the banker, to the corporate person, yes, go in there. But you ask an interesting question, how do you then grow? And allow me to answer that question by giving a bit of my own journey. Because then I started right at the bottom of it.
Every banker starts from there.
And you see, it's an important message because a lot of us, and especially in the younger generation, we want to go straight all the way to the top on day number one. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And in fact, I can tell you, it is to your disadvantage if you go all the way to the top straight up. Because then there is value in process. Process teaches you many things. It teaches you the discipline, it teaches you the craft, it teaches you very many things. If you get to the top straight up without going through the process, then you forfeit the benefits of the process. Now, part of the benefit of that process keeps you when you get up there. All right? Because you've got to build the muscle for it. You've got to build the stamina for it. You've got to build the skills for it. So I started all the way down, and it's interesting, man. This is the first time I'm giving this kind of story, and you feel it, man.
I'm happy. But the goal of this show is to get persons like yourself who are doing all the work, but they never really share the experiences. Now the spotlight is on you.
So among the very first jobs I did was to ensure that everybody who wants their salaries paid through Equity Building Society then got that done. The way to do it formally is that there are some forms they would fill. If you're working for TSC, you're working for whatever, there are some forms they fill, and those forms must be taken to your employer for the employer just to go and get that done. Many institutions then would tell your guy, you fill your form and take it to your employer and get that done. Our approach was different. We said, you fill it and drop it in any of our branches. It's going to come to the head office, and we will take it for you. The guy who would take it for you was this guy you're talking about right here. And my typical morning, I had this long bench, man, and I would pick all these different forms from different organizations, panga them, then put them in brown envelopes, and shortly begin to behave like a messenger walking around with brown envelopes, my friend. Which is not too funky. It's not funky at all. I mean, the fact of the matter is, it felt like a messenger. And I'm asking myself, man, I'm a whole big calm, I'm a whole happy. Where is all this stuff in what I'm doing? And I will tell you for free. I mean, there are many times I ask myself, with all the education I have, why am I doing this kind of stuff? Because then I would work, that time our head office was somewhere in 4 Towers near Chivanji Gardens. All right? A couple of government ministries were in town, so I had to drop in town in all these different ministries, take it and ensure they act on it. Some of them were somewhere in community in Upper Hill. And a few times when I would have to cross through Hurupak, just carrying my own brown envelopes and just go all the way, man. And you know, in the middle of Uhuru Park, you ask yourself, man, look, man, I thought I studied not to do this kind of stuff. Why am I doing this kind of stuff? And you know, sometimes you can get self-conceited and say to yourself, man, I'm too educated to do this kind of stuff. Nonetheless, I did it. There's a scripture that says, whatsoever you find to do it with all your heart, not as unto man, but as unto God. So I decided just to throw myself in and master my own discouragement. What kept me doing it is because inside the form, and I said I'm passionate about the people, inside that envelope I would keep telling myself, there must be a parent somewhere in Kasipur, Kabondo, who would want to get some credit to take their children to school. And there's no other financial institution that is giving it to them. only we are doing it. And the one condition is that then your salary then needed to come through.
Yeah.
And therefore, if I don't do what I'm doing, the parent in Kasipur Kabondo may never manage to educate their children. And for the sake of that woman in Kasipur Kabondo, I'm going to do it. For the sake of a woman somewhere in Mukorweni, I'm going to do it. Or in Garissa, or wherever it is. And for me, I flipped that coin and I said, I've got to find meaning and I'm going to find purpose in what it is that I'm doing, even when it sounds lonely. And therefore, shortly then, the form and the forms converted to become real human beings who have got real aspirations. And I stood in the way. And if I didn't do it, it had implications on them. And I said, I may never meet any of these people. And probably they'll never know that I did this for them. But I know I'm making a difference.
That's a very powerful way to think.
So I plugged purpose and a bigger purpose to what it is that I was doing.
To the brown envelopes.
To the brown envelopes. And it gave me some strength and energy to do it. And I would do it so passionately. And I'll tell you, Philip, it didn't take long before all the branches started calling our CEO, Dr. James Mwangethani. And they're like, there's a guy you must have brought. And that guy, anafanya mambo. Things are moving. And over time, he actually called me to his office. He says, Dennis, I've received a lot of good reports about you and just how well you're doing it. And he went straight and said, and I know sometimes you feel like a messenger, but I want you to know you're not a messenger. You are, in fact, a very important relationship manager for us.
He's a good leader. He's a good leader.
And of course, he made a couple of considerations in there, but he told me, you're not going to change from what you're doing. You'll keep doing it, but here's what I'm going to do for you in appreciation of what you're doing. And he did it. And I continued. Why this is important is because it was an important foundation for where I am today. So shortly thereafter, after about a year or two or so, he says to me, for the relationships that you have created, we want to now layer additional products. And we do not think there's a better gatekeeper who has the relationships than you do. Now my messengerial job became a relationship job and has now become the most important job for the next part of the vision, because truly I had those relationships. And shortly I became a relationship manager. And the next thing I knew is I then became mandated to just go bring the payrolls and all of that stuff, and that grew. And the next thing I knew, he then looked at me again and telling me and said, now, we've never done check-off loans in this bank. Figure out how we shall do them. And those guys are the people that you work it out with. I went back to my ring, and it wasn't too difficult. And we signed off with the government and everyone else that we were working with. And the next thing we knew, the thing was on course. We rolled out the product, and shortly it became the biggest product the bank had from a credit perspective. Under whose leadership? This guy, man. And the next thing I knew is that because it performed very well, I was told, then you'll become the head. Any salary-based loan in this bank, you're responsible. And shortly I became head of consumer credit. One step after another. But at every stage, I can tell you, Philip, I gave it my 200%. At every stage, I attached meaning and purpose to everything that I did. Every single piece of paper was a human being behind it. Was a family behind it. Was an aspiration behind it. Was a family behind it. And because then that meaning became important for me, then it ceased being a job. It almost became what I would call a calling. All right. And I saw myself as an important part into helping many other aspirations come to life.
I love what you've just said. It's something I kept telling myself when I started working. I started telling myself, give 105% to what you're doing. It's the 5% that will get you noticed. So if I wanted to grow, I always make sure I do 105%. For you, it's 200%. Yeah, it's something we used to be told from when we were young. Even if it's sweeping the class, give it your all, and it looked stupid. But now, right now, even when I'm working with my team, I can immediately spot someone who's very passionate about what they're doing. And immediately the growth will be, oh man, That is a
See, to
brilliant.
give it a half-hearted, whatever you do.
Yes.
Personally, I'll tell you, Philip, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well. Otherwise, don't do it. Forget about it. Don't play half-hearted. In fact, in my view, it takes a lot of energy to play half-hearted. It's too difficult. I don't know how to do things. It's either you're in or you're out. All right? It's either you're in or out. And if you're going to give it your very all. Give it your very all. Even if it fails, at least you know you passionately did it.
Yes.
And therefore, you have no regrets. No regrets at all.
Yeah.
And by the way, in my world, you never fail. It either goes your way or you learn. Either way, you never fail.
Yeah.
All right? So give it your all. And I think that then over time then became, when we did that, then I was called for other projects. I think passion has been part of how I do stuff, and commitment has been how I do stuff. I do not ever want to look at anything as too low. I think for me, it means everything, because behind every opportunity to do anything must be people behind it whose aspirations are pegged on it.
What's your mantra? You sound like a guy who has a mantra. Like passion is your thing. So yeah.
My purpose in life is that I'm a merchant of hope. That's who I am. That's my mantra. I'm a merchant of hope.
Yeah.
That's my life purpose.
Why does that sound like something you'd say before you give me a loan? Merchant of hope.
I'm a merchant of hope, of course. And even if we talk about the loan, it doesn't mean that then we'll be responsible with it. I mean, we've got to structure it correctly and govern it correctly, and there are many other aspects that come with it. But then I see myself as that. I see exactly myself as that.
So your career is going up and up and up and up, and right now you're somewhere there. Then you decide, what? Let me open a YouTube channel. You guys, how random can you be? And one, you open a YouTube channel. So what led to that? And I'd love you to speak about Goldmine and what it's about.
My passion is people. The banking platform, I do it very passionately because it's about life's transformation. Yeah. Right. And what we do within the bank is we transform lives. That's what we want to do. Yeah. And given the fact that it's about people, I've had the privilege of working with very many people. And even as a leader, I've had the opportunity to work with hundreds, probably thousands of people. I'll tell you, Philip, I've been a leader for maybe the better part of my career. I started way back. And I consider it a big privilege. Yeah. And one of the things that I've realized, even as we work with people, an organization, any organization you work for, will only be as great as its people.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
All right? Yeah. The sad reality, unfortunately, sometimes is the fact that then people have greatness inside of them. But how we exercise and how we cultivate it becomes a problem, and therefore you find people suppressing it. And they probably don't have a platform or a voice or a means or a mechanic just to bring it out. And if you think about how we were brought up, man, you would start to lift a finger and well, shut up. You don't talk when shut up. And we've been taught to hush and swallow it in and not to speak out. And therefore, when I see and interact with a lot of the people that I do, every time I look at their eyes, man, I see a lot of potential. I see a lot of giftings, and I see a lot of talents. Mentorship is one of those things that I do. All right, and I'm very, very passionate about it. But the unfortunate side of the other coin is that then you find it is greatness on one side and it is self-doubt on the other side.
Oh, yeah.
It is greatness in terms of the prospects of what could be, but stuck on history of what you never were. It is greatness, but you're still stuck on the bitterness of what your parents didn't do for you when you thought they should have done all of these things. And unfortunately, I have found us many times undermining our own capabilities and undermining our own potentials and almost suppressing it and living way lower than we truly have the capacity to.
I almost said it.
All right.
Wow. Right.
Which is unfortunate because then you will walk out and it expresses itself in very different ways. I mean, I'm just going to ask you, Philip, I want you to go with me to a client and I just want you to learn from me today. By day 3, I say, I also want you to make this speech. I'll sit right next to you. And I want you to, and it's okay, I am taking you on a mentorship session. And by the time you convince the guy that he can now be the one that speaks, man, it's like you have to convince him too much.
Yes.
Because he does not think he can be good enough. And the reality, Philip, is this. no matter who you see as great, they've gone through a journey. And one of the things they've had to do is to get to the point where they have to give themselves a chance and to believe in themselves and to believe that then among the great, my name is on that roll. And if there's one guy, and pretty much when I do the Goldmine is an expression of that pain sometimes that I feel. And I say, man, I can't imagine that such greatness lies covered in self-doubt, covered in the pains of the past, covers condemned because I goofed at this time or the other time, or I tried and I didn't make it last time, therefore I don't think I'm good enough. I mean, this question of am I good enough is one of those questions you keep hearing all the time. The deep desire for validation all the time. Am I doing it well enough? Am I tall enough? And you listen to all these conversations and you're like, man, guys, give yourselves a break. We must go back to the factory settings. And you must remember that then the God that made you perfectly well. He endowed you with a lot. And you must give you a chance. You can't afford to believe in everything else other than you. It's ridiculous. We have people that we believe in. They become almost our idols. We believe in them greater. And we're having difficulty believing in ourselves. And therefore then I say, Philip, when I look at you, you're a gold mine, man. You've got to mine that gold. You've got to bring it out and bring the beauty in it. And you've got to also remember sometimes gold is not on the surface. You've got to go in. And you've got to dig yourself out and reach out for the greatness inside of you.
For you to speak that passionately, it means at some point you were deep there and you had to mine yourself out, or someone mined the gold out of you. What was that turning point for you?
Just not too long ago, I just went home and I just listened to my mom. In fact, she looked at me in the eyes and said, she never thought they would ever park a bicycle in her own compound, let alone a car. She didn't think we would get to that point. Well, the thing is this, back to the banker stuff. We didn't grow in affluence. We didn't grow with me. We were content. We had little, but we were happy. We were a happy family and we remain a happy family. But I think the desire for what potentially could be, and the mantra that asks, why settle for less when you could be more, remained active and alive in me. I've had the opportunity of, in college, I was all over the place. I've been involved in a lot of community stuff and missions and all of that stuff. And I have seen different shades and colors of what sometimes even poverty looks like. And I hate it with a passion, man. I mean, there's no dignity in poverty.
None whatsoever.
The unfortunate bit, though, is the fact that then even poor people sometimes really still have the same capacity. They have gold mines inside of them, but it has just not been nurtured. And because it has not been nurtured, then you're almost condemned to live way lower than you could be. And I said, I may not catch the entire world, but if I convert one person and remind them that even when it is covered in discouragement, it is still gold. Even when failure has been part of your process, it is still gold. And one man believes in that mantra and rises up. Philip, by the way, I don't look for two guys to convince. I just need one. I just one. Just one. If I can convince one, and we go one at a time, and keep on going, and we see a household becoming better, and we see Philip becoming a better person, and by Philip becoming a better person, then it means his family becomes a better family, and shortly then you know the community around which Philip operates becomes even a better one. Then I think I've done my job.
Whew. Hey. Growing up without a dad and you turning out to the man that you are right now, like how did you call that man out of you, you know? Because I know for men, even for ladies, you emulate what you're seeing, and there's no this guy to look up to. Like, how did you call the man out of you?
Well, I think it's an interesting question. For starters, actually, in the neighborhood I grew up, we were quite a number of sons of single moms. And at some point, I thought that was double. I mean, we were quite a number of them. And I think for the longest, I mean, it didn't even bother me. The truth is, for the longest, it has not bothered me.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, as you grow up,
Yes.
then you realize that then there is need for that. And sometimes you say a man is built in the company of other men.
Yes.
And you reach out then to forums that then have some men. Some of them could be your very own uncles. I mean, I've hung out with a couple of my uncles, and they would hold my hand. I've hung out with other father figures as well that would equally hold my hand, and I've also equally joined some of these men forums, your men enough kind of stuff by Pastor S. Mbevi, and I think through all of these things, then we continue building that up. I mean, I don't even want to pretend that I'm there, but then we keep building it up. And we keep nurturing ourselves and seeking out for knowledge and seeking out for information, so that then it can also help you to become who you're meant to be.
Amazing.
Because at the end of the day, man, I'm gonna have to practice being a dad when I didn't have one growing up. And I'm very privileged, man. I'm a father of 3 girls, 3 beautiful girls, right? And they are such amazing friends of mine. And now I have to be the dad that I probably, sometimes it's very interesting when I listen to them saying, hey, Dad, and I said, do you guys know that then I never had the privilege of calling someone what you guys are calling me? And sometimes we joke and I say, even me, I want a dad like yours. Even me, I want to live on a dad like yours. Yeah, but, and you see, that's the point. You don't hold back yourself on account of what you didn't have. Because the fact of the matter is this, I'm not going to change yesterday. But I do have an opportunity to do something about it today and to build tomorrow as well. And therefore, I would not waste too much of my time about what I didn't have. I'm okay, we were fine. Like I told you, I didn't even realize there was a problem. I didn't even notice the gap.
Yeah.
We just grew up and we did life.
Yeah.
I hung out with my boys where I needed to hang out with my boys, and we were fine. All right? Until then you realize then that responsibility then must be executed in a certain way, and therefore I then choose to look forward and then keep on building and hopefully hold on the hand. And in fact, I would love to hold the hand of another guy who probably also didn't have a dad and hold their hand, and we move on, man. We move forward.
What conversations do you have with your daughters?
Every conversation. Every conversation. Yeah. My daughters are my friends. Of course, you have to play the parent role. Yeah. But we also then have an open space. I mean, we hang out a lot. Okay. We chat a lot. Every opportunity I have for family, I want to be there. Yeah. And we do a lot of. My daughters are about 11 years. Yeah. I've got a set of twin daughters. That was my first pack, man.
Hey, ulikaribishwa tu father
in style, man.
I have one toddler na ile mbio ananikimbiza. Oh God, I can't imagine.
But it's been one of the most rewarding and exciting journeys. I mean, I don't think I would trade it for anything else. It's been absolutely, it's a privilege to be a father. Yes. It is a privilege to be entrusted with another life. It's a privilege to be able to mold another life. And ultimately then, if I can't mold my own, then maybe I will not do a very good job molding others. So it's got to start at home.
That's an interesting concept that I strongly believe that for you to do really well at your place of work or your business, you also have to be doing really well in your social life and family life. Yeah.
And we keep putting the effort. I mean, you've got to keep putting the effort. You've got to keep learning. I mean, I didn't know how to be a dad. Neither did I have one to reference to. But here we are, man. Yeah. Last 11 years doing fine, man. I'm here. And looking forward to going strong, man. Absolutely. And of course, with an incredibly supportive wife as well. Yeah. And therefore, I mean, I'm grateful for the family that I do have.
With a background in strategic management, you look like a guy who always plans. Do you have how is your day like? From what time do you wake up and how is your day like? I'm just trying to get to the rituals of success or the secrets of success, if I may call it that. Well, so I study, I like mirroring and studying people who are successful.
Well, I number one, it also depends on how you define success to be. Yeah. Sometimes you try to become successful without defining what is success. What shall the picture of success ultimately look like? Is success more money? Is success more promotions? Is success a good family? Is success? Thing is this, I think we have many balls around all of us. Yes. All right? And we've got many aspects of it calling out for your attention. And you've got to then figure out then what to prioritize at every point in time and what matters the most at every point in time, so that then you're able to assign time and do what you need to do. But I think I have found a few things helpful. You won't be a leader if you can't interact with other great minds. part of what I'm building as a culture is actually the culture of also interacting with other minds and reading. And some of the most fascinating books are actually autobiographies by other leaders that I probably look at, and I think they inspire me. I mean, it's become serious. I mean, I'm part of a book club where we then review some of these guys. So that then I say, I'm not just reading by my own. I've got a couple of friends, and we all then hook up, and we say, guys, what did you pick out of this book? What were the lessons? So let's apply it in X, and let's apply it in Y, and let's apply it in Z. We have an amazing patron in our book club that has actually managed to get us some of the authors of those books. All right? And that has been very helpful. So a reading culture, I found it important. Secondly, I think you will not lead when you can't lead that way yourself. Don't ask me to go to where you can go. And sometimes even the conviction of where you're going to go to. And the question then becomes, then what builds then the conviction about where you want to go? When I look back at where we have come, I think at every point in time I've had to lead with conviction. Sometimes, even in the faces, like we're just coming from a COVID period, it was a period of a lot of uncertainty. And up until now, there are still many things that are still unclear. But you can be the wavering guy when everybody else is looking to you to feed from you. And sometimes you've had to lead then even in uncertain times. How do you do that? The fact of the matter is this, Philip. The pandemic we've had is not the first time we've ever had a pandemic. In history, if you look back, they've been there. So you've got to then pick back and say, what lessons do I pick about what was there then, how it was navigated, and what were found to be some of the important ingredients to help us go past it. And it's important that then you fish for that information and contextualize it to where you're at. But also thirdly, I think real concern about people. I mean, people must matter at the end of the day. They've got to matter because as a leader, you don't achieve directly by yourself. You lead people, you guide people. But sometimes, and a lot of times, you achieve actually through people.
Wow. Yeah, that is so true.
And they become then one of your biggest assets. When I look at then the jurisdiction today I run, I am not in a lot of those places at any given point in time. But we are moving. And we are not moving mildly, we are moving very strongly. And we will continue to move even stronger as we go along. And when we say then business is all about people, and it's about them being able to identify what need are you solving for and how relevant is your solution, then you continue to innovate yourself and reinvent yourself. Today we're in a digital age. We can't keep doing the days we used to do the kind of letters. I mean, it has changed. So you've also got to then keep disrupting yourself. You've got to keep disrupting yourself.
Were you always social? Right from when you were a kid? Because you're very passionate about people. For me, sometimes I envy guys who work with machines once in a while because people are difficult. Understanding humans. Hey, sometimes I'm like, I wish I had a job where I just work on my laptop. Laptop ikizima, najua shida ni battery, ni replace. Because human beings. And I'm just curious. It's a new concept that you're introducing me to. Like, my passion is people.
Yes. No, I'm passionate about people. And maybe in a different discussion, you'll look at the question of what you call the personality types as well. Because then some of our personality types then guide in terms of what is our best location and what are some of those best jobs for us to do. And some of us are introverted, others are extroverted. Others like to work alone, they're very systematic. Others live on disruptions every day because then they want to keep disrupting. They can't stick on one thing for too long because then they want to keep changing it out. And all these things, by the way, when you study even human psychology, you'll find that then these personality types always come into play. All right. So, and that's why you'll find if you give an accountant, typical accountant, a job to be a marketer, you've killed the guy. And you see, it's part of then finding your space. And that's why I said earlier on, you've got to find your space. When you ask a marketer to come and do reconciliations on the back office and find where the 2 shillings and the 2 cents are, man, you've killed that guy. Because that's not him. And he will struggle a whole lot more. By you finding your space, you give yourself 50%. It's actually 50% headroom for you to succeed. Because you're already doing something you enjoy to do. So a guy, if you're that kind of a bad guy who wants to be on the laptop, for sure, the world gives us the opportunity for people to work on those things. So we might as well then plug you in there, and you're in your space, and you're happy to do what you do. And therefore, we are all different. But understanding self is also very, very important. And it's interesting. Human beings have understood how the moon space works, how big crafts run. but we hardly take time to understand ourselves.
Yes.
Many times, sometimes even in my mentorship class, I would ask, if I was to ask you to introduce yourself away from the actor, who would you say you are?
Now you go back to Sidi, I'm a father. What?
Before you became a father, who are you? And sometimes I'm sitting in an interview panel and ask, tell us, who are you? And you start telling me I'm a big cop. No, I didn't ask what you did. I'm asking you, who are you? When you unpack you, away from the degree you went for and EDC, who are you? Because if you don't understand who you are, then how do you spring yourself forward correctly?
Yeah.
And what you do becomes an extension of who you are. Then shortly, then Philip, you hear a guy telling me, I want a job, which job, any job. What do you mean? It's just typical answer of a guy then who says, I have not understood myself. And if you've not understood yourself, chances are very high that then you'll keep wavering all over the place. And chances are even others will abuse you.
Yeah.
All right? And it's unlikely that you'll get to your optimum. At some point, it's also good to first shut the door off and really have a personal conversation. I call it having the conversation between me, myself, and I, and asking myself, who am I? Man? When I look at myself in the mirror, who is that guy?
At this rate, I'll put mirrors everywhere now. It's amazing.
I think it's important.
Who am I? I've always, I've always thought, okay, Philip, you need to work on this and this. These are your weaknesses. These are your strengths. But I've never framed it the way you have. Who am I? Hey, that's my job for the weekend.
You see, it's the same story you're talking about even talents. No matter how talented you are, if you never are conscious about it, to put it to work, and to put in the work, to exercise it, a guy who is less talented will do better than you.
Right.
A guy who is less talented but puts in the work will do better than you. Talent is good as an opening balance.
Yeah. That's good.
All right?
Yeah.
But you've got to put it to work. Why does Kenya Kipchoge, why do they still run? They're already gifted, I suspect.
Yes.
But today, if you actually ask a guy like him, Kipchoge will not tell you it's a question of talent. And in fact, I personally would agree with him. It's no longer talent.
Yeah.
It's the amount of effort and work he's putting there.
Yes.
But then, put effort in what? It's in the area that then he thinks he can succeed the most. Sometimes we're under this illusion that then I want to work on all my weaknesses and finish them. You will never finish them. How about working on your strengths and capitalizing on them?
For you to be in banking and have all this knowledge about now, thank you for opening. Like for us, when we think about banking and the people that work in banks, all we are thinking about are the profit and loss tables and Excel sheets and everything. But banking now is not a business about money. It's a business about people.
Money, ultimately, Philip, is a reward of sorting someone else's challenge.
Yeah.
It's not the primary thing, but it's a natural outcome and reward for sorting out. When you come and meet me at the bank, I'm not trying to figure out how much can I make out of this guy. I want to understand what exactly is a challenge that you seek to solve.
Banks are in the people industry.
It's a people industry. Oof, it's a people industry. It is about the aspiration you have. How can we make that aspiration come to life? How can I help you bridge from point A to point B?
I had a conversation where somebody said that Nike, the shoe company, the CEO actually says that it's not a shoe company. Yes, it's not a shoe company. It's a marketing company. So the shoe is just one of the tools. Now, the way you've put it about banking, oh my goodness.
Well, actually, this book is the one I was reading 2 months ago. It's called The Shoe Dog. Fantastic book. Yes. Fantastic book. And again, look at that. It's a mind frame you approach this thing with. I am not seeking to, and it's for that reason, you'll even find, even in the bank, there are services which are even offered without being charged.
Yeah.
All right. It's not too much about that money question.
Yeah.
But money, even for any entrepreneur, money will always be an outcome. It's a reward for problems solved. Yeah. And the market will always reward you with it. And maybe this is even where sometimes even as entrepreneurs we miss the mark. Because then if you open a business and the sole purpose for the business is to make money, you'll shut it very quickly. You'll shut it very quickly because that road could be rough. You've got to find a purpose much greater than that. And ultimately, then I want to know I made a difference. And that's exactly what I was telling you. When I was carrying my brown envelopes, to me, it was a lady somewhere in Kasipur, Kabondo, or any other place across the country that says, here is my true shot at taking my children to school. And if I don't do this, these children will just be home. Here is my true shot at extending the kind of life I would want to give as a gift to my child. Because I want to give them a fair shot at life. And that fair shot requires that they go through this education process. And because I don't have it, then I need to interact with this organization that solves the problem of me taking my child to school. And sometimes some of the bashing we've received for some of these things is because then we are very stuck on interest and all of that stuff. Well, for sure, I mean, it's not going to be pro bono, because then there is definitely a shareholder, someone who, but that's not the primary motivation. Today, if you look at equity, for example, one of the greatest things it prides itself, and we pride ourselves in, is the number of children today we are taking into school.
Yes.
Out of the little interest that I charge you, I'm able to take a few other children to school, and not just locally, but across the globe. And that is deeply satisfying. Because it means tomorrow's generation is covered.
It's covered. It's been taken care of. Still on the banking, let me now go back to business kidogo. What's the future of banking? Because you know, technology and the way things are changing so fast, a lot of industries, even ours, has been completely disrupted. How do banks look like in the next 10, 20 years?
Banking is no longer a place you go to. It is something you do. Right? Absolutely. Because you will not stop needing to make transfers by this exchange value. The fundamental shift is that then it's not a place you go to. I've spent the last 10 years of my career ensuring that banking is not a place you go to. And I feel so proud of what we've been able to achieve. And when I look at the prospects ahead, digital is taking it over. And maybe in a few years' time, we'll be trying to teach guys how we used to do banking in a hall, and they can't understand what you mean. But then I feel the other day, I went for an event somewhere in London. And I was, and they decided to take us for a dinner, a cocktail in the evening. Then after we were done with the place that we were doing the cocktail, which looks like a pubish and all of that stuff, they say, by the way, guys, just in case you didn't know, this was the ex-branch of Bank Y a few years back.
Oh, okay. Hey, that is scary.
This used to be a bank. It's a pub. It's more of a pubish place where then now they're holding their cocktail and all that stuff. Banking is no longer a place that we will go to. Look at all the financial statements being released. Over 90% of our transactions in the country today are no longer being done on brick and mortar. They've moved on. And I think that is the future of banking. It's going to be digital going ahead. It probably is already there. The question isn't what are the permutations that it's going to take up ahead.
You have the privilege of studying businesses as a banker, so you have the privilege of studying my account more detailed than maybe I do. What are some of the mistakes that you're seeing a lot of businesses make as they're trying to shift as well? Just like you guys, a lot of businesses want to shift to the next level. And what's this advice you give to a businessman like me who walks into your office?
It could be many, but let me try a few. I think the first one is just to study the shifts and just see what changes are going on. We can no longer continue doing things the same way we used to do them, because then that shift is happening real quick. Think about our African context. The biggest asset we have is actually our youthful population. The average age in Africa is 19. All right? Then it means that then Africa is a teenage country.
Yes. It's true.
Actually, a friend of mine called it a bit harsh. I says it's a pediatric continent. Because then it's full of young guys. Now, therefore, if then that's your environment, you can't ignore that market. And you must ask yourself, how do they want to consume their services? Now, don't try to force them to consume them the way you would want to consume them. Man, when I think actually about 19 now, I suddenly feel very old. They can't consume them the way we consume them. It's different. Therefore, begin to take the necessary shifts. And I keep saying, you don't open shop for yourself. You actually open it for your customers. So don't just be fascinated about your products, and they have no validation from the market. So I think it's important that then those shifts then get to happen. But you also asked a question as a banker. I have seen a lot of people who have potential that don't get assisted by banks. And it's because the banks also don't understand them very well. The challenge is we do a lot of our transactions away from the bank. I keep encouraging everybody, pay and run your transactions digitally. Allow your bank to know you a bit more. Because then when it gets to know you, think about it. Today we are paying digitally, yes. But I will tell you, lending is also going digital. And it is already digital. And how do we then do it digitally? Because then I can see your data, I can analyze it, and I can score you and assign a limit to you. And you have it all the time. And therefore tomorrow when you find a deal that needs to support what you need to do, you don't need to come and queue to the back. I mean, sometimes if you think about how we operate, you may find a deal that makes sense at 2 a.m. Which bank is open at that hour? But because you are transacting with me, and I can see your data, and I can score your data, then it means that then I even mark a limit to you, for you, so that then even at 2 a.m. you can still close your deal on the basis of the limit you already enjoy. But how will I do it when I don't know how you're running? It's good. And I think the next thing that we're going to see is actually data becoming very, very important. Data is becoming very, very important. And the more you then jump digital, the more you help us build data that actually assists you. And therefore it's in your interest to do so.
Because that has been my biggest challenge with banks. They don't understand our industry, the creative industry. Because like, how do I sell what I'm doing right now, to a banker? Because like you said, you're a merchant of hope. That is what arts do. Like what I do, this content that we put out, the impact is so great, but it's not tangible. It's not.
Let me tell you why there's a lot of hope ahead. It's because when then all these transactions are more digital, what will the bankers do? They'll have to spend more time now with you and understand what you're doing and package your story nicely and find a way to support you. You see, for as long as it remains very manual, they are still behind cubicles. They never come to understand. They will not be in a place like this to understand what it is that you do. But now, as then as then transactions shift, then part of what we shall do with our time is to come and listen to you now. We get to understand you better.
I tell you, one of my goals is to have a conversation with the Kenya Bankers Association and try and make them understand the importance of the orange economy, the creative arts. Anyway,
I think it's big, it's huge. It's going to be the biggest employer, no doubt about it. It is talent-based, it is passion-based, and I think there's a huge, whole lot of future around this one. And I'll tell you for free, it will be supported significantly. It will be supported significantly.
Do you know, a lot of people don't know this, but a study that was done, but this was pre-COVID, and now after COVID, I don't know. Like tourism in this country contributes to 2% of the GDP or lower. I don't want to call it creative arts. What we do, there was a name. Yeah, but the creative industry, yes, contributes about 10% of our GDP. But because we don't have the data, and there's a whole ministry for tourism, which contributes 2%. There's no ministry for creative industry. And so right now, as I'm having these conversations, I'm also starting to see the picture from you, and we don't have the data to present to you.
We will have to have greater engagement. I've heard them say many times that even leadership is never given. We go for it. And even as an industry, I think we'll have to then pick what needs to be picked and have the engagements that must be held. For the longest, I think a lot of people sometimes shy away. They are away. In fact, let me tell you, Phil, sometimes just the notion in the mind that then the banks won't listen to us keeps a lot of people away. And the banks have no problem listening to you. That's why they open doors every single day. I think we must foster the kind of engagements and conversations that move us forward. And we must create that future that we want to see, because 10% is material.
Press pause on that, and I know that's a whole conversation that will take several years. And you working for an organization that has been a company that started locally here in Kenya, but has gone beyond the borders. I'll tell you the truth, the one thing that keeps me awake at night, I'm very scared, is not that we have bad businesses in Kenya, is that our environment does not allow our companies to grow. Right? If I ask you top of mind to name the top wealthiest people in America, top 10 will all be businessmen. in Kenya, if I ask you to name for me the top 10 wealthiest people, they're all politicians. We're not in an environment that encourages business growth, but Equity has been able to do that. And what's that mind shift that I need to change, that you guys were able to change and you are able to go beyond the borders? Because I don't know, I think we think very locally. What is that shift? What's the secret?
Well, I don't know about the secret, and maybe it's not even, I will not even answer it purely as an equity question.
Yeah.
But I think there are lessons we can draw. The truth is, 1984, that organization was founded as a very small organization, somewhere on the back street of Kangema. And maybe if you saw those pictures of what it was, you would be amazed, because they have no correlation with what the organization you see today.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the kind of organizations where mamambogas would put their unsold items for the night inside the banking hall, and then they'll pick them tomorrow morning and put it to sell.
Wow.
And I think everybody starts small, and everybody starts somewhere. But I think fidelity to the vision, the tenacity and resilience to keep fighting along is going to be extremely important. Because in this same environment, those same challenges existed for any other organization that has crossed the borders. And those same challenges do exist also for the people that are starting their businesses. I've had this principle that says start small, grow big, but keep the focus. Keep making the step every single day. And nobody will guarantee us per se that it's going to be an easy terrain per se. And we know that even before we begin. Sometimes I see the Bible talking about counting the cost before you even begin for any builder. But again, those engagements must continue. And we must ask each other, who are the like-minded partners that can help me jump from point A to point B? And I will tell you for free, Philip, there will always be those kind of people. There will always be those kind of people. And they'll hold your hand at this time, and they move you to point C. It does not mean that they're the same guys who will take you to point D. Maybe someone else will take you to point D, and so on and so forth. Because in the environment, sometimes I look at it and ask myself, it's easier to focus sometimes on some of the things that I have control over, than some of the things that I may not necessarily immediately have control over. But of course, even as a citizen, I think we do have a responsibility, because then we also get the leaders we deserve. And therefore, when we look at the politics going the way it goes, we get the leaders we deserve.
Absolutely. The ones who put them in.
We get the leaders we deserve. But what do? We must keep going forward. And that's why I said, we all must start somewhere. But we must keep the vision and true to vision. We must keep that vision alive. And we must then build some level of tenacity. And that's what I was telling you earlier. If I started and went straight up to the top, then I miss some of the beauty of what the process delivers for us. Maybe part of the wealth of even some of those in an organization like the one you've just quoted right now is not just too much the fact that they're out there, but the proprietary knowledge and expertise that has been built over the last number of years might be part of the biggest muscle that also guarantees it the next many years. Because over time, we've handled different situations. We've handled different, complex, simple, conventional, non-conventional, and all of that stuff. But going through that storm, and that experience becomes then very, very critical. Very, very, very critical. And it's part of then how you build your mass towards then where you must go. And it's part of then what I would also say even to some of those guys who sometimes starting business. You will still, I don't think there's a shortcut, and there's no way to avoid some of these paths. There's no shortcut. You're going to have to go through and deal with that environment, which sometimes is porous, is turbulent, is unpredictable. But you've got to then learn just how to navigate through this. And how do you do this? And I think that's where sometimes the power of mentorship comes to play. The power of the networks also comes to play. The power of partnerships and all of that then come to play.
Organizational transformation. Because you're a leader, you always have so many teams working under you. Like, how do you ensure that the person at the bottom of that food chain, sorry for using those words, understands your vision and what you said, leadership really matters in transforming an organization? Like, what's your secret? How do you communicate your psyche and your energy and your vision to that person at the end of that food chain?
If there was a substitute to communication, maybe some people would use it. There is no substitute to communication. And it's not just communication, it's actually effective communication. we are alive to the fact that a lot of organizations will have a poster that says this is what our vision is.
Yeah.
But beyond the poster, it has no life. And you don't have a vision just because you have a vision poster. Just like in your own life, if you've also not convinced your several faculties about where you want to go, it's just a good paper in theory. Secondly, I think connecting is connecting, and it's getting your hands soiled, and it's connecting and doing it all the way. And you must never tire. You must never tire to go all the way.
Do you get tired? How do you pull yourself out of that?
Something you're passionate. How do you get tired of your passion? You're passionate about.
Zingine unafikanga hapo mwisho, you're like,
Does it have discouraging moments? Yes.
Yes.
Does it have moments that feel like they would break you? Yes.
Yes.
But back to what I said earlier, the fact that it is something you're passionate about gives you some innate energy. And therefore then you find that energy for you is not external. You're not depending on an external to feed it. It's coming from within. Because it's something you're passionate about. Sometimes I describe passion as that thing that you know you would do even if nobody pays you.
Yeah.
It's just that you end up doing it so well that they're embarrassed not to pay you.
Okay. Okay. So,
today, on your creative space,
yes,
how much encouragement do you need?
to work personally.
To do the thing you do.
I don't think any. I just love it. So I just wake up.
There you go. Chances are if I asked you to become an accountant, it will need a lot of encouragement. But now that you've found a space that you're passionate about, even when things don't work up all the time, you have some energy and the drive to just keep going. Finding your true north is important. Finding your true north, and I call it the true north.
Yes.
It's important.
What's the future of Goldmine? What's the future for Dennis? Because you look like a man down a path, a mission path. I'm just curious where it's taking you.
As I said, man, I'm about people. If we can put more smiles in our homes across the country and across the region, our job will be done. If we can remind each other of the greatness inside of us, and if we can remind each other that quitting is not one of the options we have got, then I think we'll be going somewhere. And I think in my own small or big way, I want to keep making my contribution to remind us that there is greatness inside of every single one of us. And some of the people you look up to, if they give you their story, they'll tell you they have also failed before. They've had their challenges before. And we will keep telling the story of how did they overcome it and how did they progress. So that then we do this for purposes of inspiring all of us and encouraging all of us. That then if this country is going to be beautiful, it's because Phil, you must do your bit. And I must equally do my bit. You must bring your A game and I must bring my A game. You must give you a chance and I must give me a chance. So that then when you give yourself a chance and I give myself a chance and you give your A and I give mine and we bring it on the table, then we probably make a difference. Sometimes I see us whining about what we think we are helpless about, but I do not think we are that helpless. And I don't understand why we would want to complain about things we have the ability to change. Let's go ahead and do what we must.
Your autobiography. What's the cover looking like? And what's the title of your autobiography?
They're still working on it. They're still working on it.
What do you want it to read? Since you're a huge fan.
Well, I think it will tell the story of possibility. It will tell the story and the journey of building. It will probably tell the story of becoming. Because then we all have the opportunity to be. We all have the opportunity to build. We all have the opportunity to make a difference. And legacy is not anything you do on the final day. It's what you do every single day. And your life must count. You must be able to look back and say, I feel proud about the fact that in my tenure, this is what I did. This is how I count for my days, man. When you go up there, man, you'll be saying to him, and for the days you gave me, this is what I did. This is the lives I transformed. These were the lives that were made better because I was there. And I think it's one of those questions that I ask myself every single day. Who will smile because I was alive today? Whose life will become better because I'm here?
class.
Who am I making a difference? In whose life am I making a difference? Today I have the benefit of being a banker. How do I utilize that opportunity to keep making a difference?
Well, wanafunzi, who are you making smile today? That's powerful. We never think about
The
it.
value of that, I'll tell you, Phil, is greater than money can pay you for. There are moments, Phil, I say money is cheap.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because the joy that gives, when I know I have done all that I could to put a smile on someone's face, then I sleep like a baby.
Wanafunzi, go out there, make someone smile. Yani after that point, I don't even think there's anything I'd want to add. Is there anything else that you'd want to talk to our students? Teacher, ongelesha our students and just, because that last point has been so powerful. I don't know. Is there anything else you feel you need to?
I think I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. And just to say, this is 2021. Mm-hmm. The fact that we went past 2020 and got into 2021 must count for something. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think when I look at the statistics, there's close to 2 million guys who've been wiped off on COVID. Mm-hmm. But God allows you to be alive. The question must be, for what reason? And for what value? Mm-hmm. And every last one of us has got greatness inside of them. And we must never quit on the battle to bringing that greatness out. No matter how bad you are, no matter what the past may have been like, well, we must keep fighting these fights. And we must make our time truly count and our value truly felt.
And on those words, we will end this conversation there. And I'm sure, I am very sure we will have you back here because there's so much. You're a well of knowledge, and I'm sure guys are going to request for you to come back again. Thank you so much for honoring our invite. Asante sana, Dennis.
Please remind them to subscribe to the Goldmine Show, man.
Subscribe to the Goldmine Show, and yeah, this guy will help you mine your gold, man. Please subscribe to the Goldmine Show. Yeah. He's doing an amazing job. Listen to the stories, and thank you. Yeah, class, how did you find our teacher today? Let me know in the comments. And if you just want to listen to this audio without the long video, maybe you're not time, you can get this audio on SoundCloud. Look for Field Director. Yeah, as you're driving in the bus, and as you're walking. And yeah, tuendelee na class. I can't wait to meet the next teacher. And yeah, let me know in the comments how this impacted you. Asanteni sana.